Hello, I am Daniel Heffley, and today I'm going to teach you how to make, or how to use Away3d and Awayphysics, and really I'm just going to teach you how to make a little thing that spawns a box and lands on a plane or another box, and just does basic physics, and they just spawn on the mouse click. So nothing complicated, but a good beginning step into the process. So first of all, you'll want to go to away3d.com/download to get Away3d. Currently 4.1.6. You can download the source files right here. For Awayphysics, go to github/.com/away3d/awayphysics-core-fp11. It will work with Away3d 4.0 and plus, and yeah. It's still an alpha, so there are some problems I will discuss later. So yeah, that's all we need for that. Okay, so excuse me, get started. I'm using Flash Develop. Probably a good thing if you're not a beginner. It'd be good to know a programming language. I'm using, well, you have to use AS3, ActionScript 3. It would help if you have, if you're at intermediate level in this, or C# or C++, object-oriented, or Java, object-oriented programming. That way you can easily get through. I do recommend Flash Develop. So yeah, when you download, you'll get zip files, you unpackage them, put them wherever you keep your source code. You need Away3d, Awayphysics, and the COM. I also have a green sock for Tween Macs, and a little keyboard manager made by a teacher. You're also going to need the Awayphysics SWC, and I put it in my lib folder for my libraries. Make sure that in Awayphysics you right click and add to library so it highlights blue. Awayphysics will not work without that. Also, over here you're going to have to make sure the Flex SDK is installed. I have the SDK and the Air. Hope I could update my Flash player, but I'll do that later. But I have standalone debug Flash player, I have that installed. And then one last thing is in your project properties, make sure you're a Flash player 11.0 or above. I'm using 11.2, so. And that's really what you need to know to get started. Now, to actually, so what I like to do usually is, once I have that all set up, I do it in builds, and there's nothing there. You can see it's white, so that means everything's working. Okay, so. Oh, also you want to make sure your main class is your document class. Right click and you can select that. As you see, I have two other classes, main and main 2, and we're on main 3. Those are previous versions of this and other screencasts, but I want to keep them close, so if I need to look at them, I can. So yeah, so let's get started. To actually display 3D objects, we need a certain object. That would be a view 3D object. So it's protected var, let's call it view 3D. Right there. Nice. This handles all of your rendering. It holds your camera. It's basically your entire scene. Another thing probably good to know is if you have experience in 3D programming. Otherwise, this might seem like magic. To be honest, I have experience in 3D programming, and it sometimes seems like magic, but it's math, and it's actually pretty awesome. So, so let's make our view new view 3D, and it comes with a bunch of things, a scene. So if you've already built a different scene and have it stored somewhere else, you can just put it right here. Camera, if it's null, it makes its own camera where you can adjust the field of view and the frustum and all that. The renderer, you can have different renderers in here, but we don't need to worry about that. And other force software, If you need to use a certain other software to communicate with your video card and profile and just base. If you make there's different profiles built in. So yeah, just keep it blank and it'll be good. Let's see, new view 3D, and then we need to take stage dot add child view. So it's awesome about Away3d is it's a sprite object, so you can just add it to the stage and it should work. Okay, that doesn't work. Let me check something. Okay, that does work. I just have to do a couple more steps. So here we go. So what we need to do is we need to have it render. We could just do view.render and it will render. However, it'll only do it once and won't update, so we want to make a enter frame listener event listener. So just add event listener event dot enter frame, and let's just call it loop for simplicity. Well, just loop, not loop for sim. Yeah, you know what I mean. You can see what I'm typing. Function loop. Sorry, event. No, I just do E. It's event gets null, just in case we want to call it from other than an event. Okay, so here we could just do view.render. And it should work. Ta-da! It's black instead of white. The reason it's black is because there's nothing in our scene. So let's add things to our scene. So let's make a function called add static objects. For now, I'll explain that a little later. I always like to have my loop at the bottom, but or really all my event listeners at the bottom, just for simplicity, unless I have something that the event listener specifically calls and have on it. But that's my own thing. You guys don't need to know that, or don't need to follow that. Function add static objects. Don't need to pass anything in. Void. Okay, so to have something in the scene, we need to make an object. So as far, we'll call it. I'll just call it box. We'll call it floor. That's more descriptive than box, and it will be a cube or cube geometry. Okay, so and that will really sets us to make a cube. Gets new cube geometry and width 100, 100, 100, 100. We'll keep it. Now let's do, since it's our floor, 1000 by 10 by 1000. Since we're not using textures or anything, we don't need to worry about segments in the box. So okay, and you can't just have that. We actually need a mesh, so we'll just do floor mesh. It's a mesh. That's how it will know what to render. Gets new mesh, and we just add our cube geometry, so floor, and then the material will. Then we'll want to do a material, otherwise we won't see it. I could render that, but it'd be better use of both our time, so we'll make a color material. This is basic material. You could have a texture material you can do in, but that requires loading in from an outside file or a SWC. I don't know if you can do it through an SWC. I think you would be able to, but yeah, that is another thing, so we don't want to do that. Gets new color material. So we put in a hex code for the color, and let's just do a bright red, not a bright F. 1, 2, 3, 4. And alpha, that's to see how transparent it is. So 1, it's completely opaque. Yeah, I have that right. And then 0, it's completely transparent. So we'll just keep that at 1, the default. Okay. So floor, and then we'll just do color. And then all we have to do is view dot scene, because each view holds a scene, dot add child, and floor mesh. And we add the mesh to the scene. And that will add it at 0, 0, 0. Whenever you add something, it will be at 0, 0, 0. And since our camera is at 0, 0, 0, we see that. So let's move our camera, and we'll do it up here. So here's view dot camera, because the view holds a camera. You believe you can have multiple cameras, but you have to set them active. But really, it's easiest if you just have one, and you can move it around. Okay, dot position. And it's a vector, so gets new vector 3D, not a regular vector which is like a linked list, but an actual mathematical vector, and enter the x, y, and z coordinates and w, but that's more for rendering. And in the 4th dimension I could spend a long time, one, to remember what it is exactly, but yeah, that's for speeding up the math for rendering. So let's do, I think, 800 by 200 by 800. That'll give us a nice angle. So we'll be looking straight at one of the corners of the box. Oh, and also it might be help. It's looking in a certain direction. So view dot camera. We'll do look at, and we'll just look at a new vector 3D, and its default is 0, 0, 0, 0, so just do 0, 0, 0, 0. And have it look there where it spawns. So, that. There, see? Oh, nice. And it does kind of look a bit weird because of our field of view. It's defaulted at 90. Might change that later if we have time, but yeah, it requires making a completely new camera, so that's not important. But it's there, and Away3d does have a nice MDS page, or where you can look up, yeah. Did I just say MDS? That's material safety data, which is an industry thing, not a computer science industry, a construction industry, but never mind. Sweet. So give me a second. Okay, just so you know, if this feels a little bit disjointed in my way I'm speaking, it's because I can only record these about 15 minutes at length, so I have to stop, render it out, and pick up where I left off. So, and see, we got our box, and yeah, the camera we'll worry about later. So now we need to have our boxes follow the other ones. So we're going to want to add a mouse click, stage.add event listener. There's event dot, or it's not event, it's a mouse event dot click, and we'll just call it click. We'll call it mouse click. Good to, okay. Detected function. Let's click. Mouse event. That's null. Okay. And void. So whenever we click the mouse, we are going to create a dynamic object. So add dynamic object function. Woo! Put that right down here. Don't need any parameters, not going to return anything. Let's basically we're do about the same thing that we did before, except we're going to add physics. Well, first we have to do the same thing, then we need to add physics. So far we'll just call it box, cube geometry. Actually, we'll do this a lot faster. Then we'll still call it box. We'll make a mesh object. That's new mesh. We'll start new cube. Actually, let's make this fun. We'll make this sphere instead of the one on mine, which is cubes. Well, if you're watching this, we'll have a bit more fun because these won't stack. Okay, sphere geometry, and instead of width, height, depth, we have radius and segments, and we don't need to worry about that. So, I think 50 is good. So we'll just do the default 50. And material base, new color material. Let's make them blue. 0 x 1 2 3 4 ff. Just a bright blue. Oh, have another parentheses. So yeah, and var, well, not var, view. Scene, add child, and box. And we'll test that to make sure it works. Click. Oh, and we got our sphere that's inside because it always goes 0 0 0. So before we do that, we want box dot position. And we'll keep it at 0 0 0. So we could do box dot y. So we just change the y coordinate of the vector that it stores. Gets, let's have it start off at 1,000. Okay, well, now that we have it adding to the scene, we need to add physics. That is for add physics objects. So I usually call it body because it's a physics body. So we'll just keep it simple at that. We'll do AWP. AWP is Awayphysics. Rigid body. It's AWP rigid body. So you need a shape. So new AWP sphere shape. And the radius, and since our other one is 50, it defaults 50, so we can keep it that, which is nice. And then we need to pass in skin, so the box, that way when the physics body moves, the box mesh will move with it, so which is nice. And the mass, and when it's 0, or default 0, that means if it's 0, it will be static. If it's any other number, it will be not static. So let's make it nice and heavy, so we'll do 500. I don't know if it's in pounds or kilograms or tons, but yeah. Okay, so new body, that's our sphere, 500. Okay, so it should fall. Oh, and before we do that, we need to actually set up the physics world. That would be important. So, let's go up here. Protected var. I'll just call it world. AWP. No, it's not physics world, it's dynamics world. Okay, and this isn't like view. It's a singleton, so instead of getting a new world or dynamics world dot get. Actually, let me check that. And I always have to look that up. It gets dynamics world dot get instance. Okay, world gets dynamics world dot get instance. And world, not world, world, world. Dot init dbvt broad phase. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it works. It gets everything going. And then, like with rendering, we need to have the world basically render the physics or step as it does step. And then default time step, so every time how many steps it takes, really. So default is 1 over, no, that's not default, but I use 1 over 60, and instead of dividing we can 0.0333 and such. So there. That, okay, now that we have that taken care of, back here with our body, with the sphere, we need to add it to the physics world. So world dot add rigid body, and we just add body. Okay. Oh, and something to note with Awayphysics is, which is weird, is it will put the rigid body also at 0, 0, 0. So you want body to get the mesh position. So body dot position gets box dot position, and you can't just give it a position because it messes with the mesh, which might be at a different position. So this is the most surefire way I found, is just to give the mesh its position, then give the body, add the mesh to the body, and then move the body to the mesh. It seems a bit roundabout, but it has less weird quirks with the physics or where the mesh is in relation to the, yeah, so good practice. They might fix it. I mean, Awayphysics is still in alpha, so. Okay, so got that. Click. So falling. Oh, and it went through. And if you're paying attention, you probably know why it went through. It's because our floor, our static object, isn't a physics object. But our box fell, or sphere fell. Sphere fell. Oh, that's weird to say. Okay, so down here, we just do about the same thing. So as far, since it's in a different function, I'm just going to call it body again. AWP rigid body gets new rigid, rigid body new. Okay, but you would think this would be a sphere shape, or not a sphere, cube shape like it is up here when we define the mesh, but no, it's actually under box shape for Awayphysics. I really wish it wasn't that. We want to give it the same dimensions as our mesh, otherwise it won't look right. Well, it won't act how it looks. Let's do floor, that's our 3D object container, and our mass we want it to be 0, otherwise, which will make it static, which is hence the reason the function's called add static objects, or object in this case. So it won't fall with gravity. Okay, so that. Oh shoot, implicit colon 959. Oh. Boop. Oh no, I did that right. Floor. Oh, floor mesh, not floor. That should help. So click. Falls. Boop. Still went. Oh, forgot to add it to the world, or to the physics world. So since this is staying at 0, 0, 0, we don't have to worry about moving the physics body to that location because that's where it default starts out. So world dot add rigid body and body. And there we go. Bonk. Oh, did it just? I think it just stayed in the same spot. Let's throw another one. Oh, oh, they stack. That's interesting. Wow. Try doing this in real life. Stacking bowling balls. Could be that they're so heavy that they don't want to move. Yeah, they're bouncing though. Bonk. Okay, well, let's try something. 500. Let's do just one. Make them real floaty. And let's turn debug off. It runs a little. Awayphysics runs a lot better in release mode than in debug mode, I have found. But debug mode's nice when you're working your stuff and something fails. It points you straight to it most of the time. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna boonk. I thought it would be more fun, but it seems to do just about the same thing. Yeah, it's still cool looking though. It's like a snowman. Blue snowman. Okay. So yeah, that's really all there is to this tutorial. I'm running out of time. Some things... Away3d is actually a really nice program. It was a joy to program with. If I ever do Flash again, or work with Flash, I will keep this in mind. Awayphysics, I would suggest waiting. There are quite a few little quirks to it, like with the whole position thing I was talking about earlier. Also, it doesn't always detect collisions, which makes it less than ideal, sadly. It has to do with the world step, and sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. This is 0.033. Oh, it's 222.333. Is you want that super low. See. So what we could do is with our do dynamic objects. Do add event listener AWP events. Import that event. There we go. Dot collision added. Collide. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so collision added. Go down here, another event protected. I'd like to show you so you know. So this is the biggest problem I had with Awayphysics, and it is a documented bug, and they're in alpha, and it showed up, I believe, in February, and they haven't fixed it yet. February of 2014. It is June 2014 at the moment. So, see, collide, event, snow, void, and we'll just trace out hit string. Okay, so whenever any of these collide with anything, it should trace out hit. Now this is in a release mode, so we're not going to see that. So let's go to debug. But we know it compiles, so that's good to know. Did I hit the wrong one? Okay. Click. Yeah, see, not detecting it actually hitting, and it has to do with the world. The stepping is supposed to be people. They were talking about they were able to get it to work by doing like 1/500, and then they were able to go back to 1/60. And I tried that. I messed around with it on my last project. Wasn't working. Did something a little later. Tried it again. It worked. Oh, and since it's 1/500, it is going to fall really slow. So, while it's falling, from here, I would suggest going to the Away3d forums. They discuss a lot of things. So yeah, no, not hitting. So, which is sad, because if you want something to hit something and destroy itself, that's how you would detect it. I mean, you could create your own collision manager and through Away3d detect if they overlap. or you could actually have rays just jutting out of all directions of your object, and the ray casting detection works awesome. So, I mean, there's workarounds, but that's really the biggest problem. But yeah, for also going from here, Awayphysics, let me see, I'll pull this over here. They have, there's Awayphysics examples. There's another GitHub page where they just have a ton in the source. They just have a ton of different examples that really, if you really go through them, will teach you a lot about the physics thing. That's where I learned everything. You'll look for tutorials online. There are one or two good ones that basically teach you what I just taught you. But they're still good to look at, and they come with the source code. However, these go really deep, and you have to sit there and really go through the code. They're pretty well done to learn like character controllers and such, different shapes, gravity, terrain, yeah, collision events. So yeah, I fully recommend doing that. Away3d, they've got their docs and reference to tutorial. They have a bunch of tutorials which are nice. They've got their API reference. That's what I was trying to think of earlier. There's books. I don't know anything about the books. But yeah, beginner, intermediate. So yeah. The forum, a lot of people discussing bugs and such. So good community. Great. Away3d is fantastic. So yeah. Other than that, you can check out the other tutorials I have on my channel. There's another one that's very similar to this. It's just the basics. I believe this one's a little easier to follow. And there's a series of videos breaking down like lighting, camera controllers, character controllers. The character controller one, I had an issue at the end. If you comment, I will reply with the solution. Yeah, because telling you now is kind of useless. I might redo that one, but we'll see. So yeah, there's plenty. I have a whole bunch of other tutorials which hopefully help, because I didn't have those, and I wish there was people that did that. So yeah, have fun if you got this far. Thank you for listening to me ramble and about this, and have a nice day.